Carlos Hathcock, born in 1942 in Little Rock, Arkansas, entered the world quietly, yet with an intensity that would eventually define him as the deadliest American sniper in history. As a boy, Carlos was not loud or boisterous, but he observed everything with a meticulous eye, noticing details others overlooked, understanding patterns, and quietly mastering control over his own body and mind. He spent hours tracking birds, calculating distances in his backyard, practicing aim with slingshots, BB guns, and small rifles, developing precision, patience, and focus from an age when most children were content with simple games. His curiosity about mechanics, his fascination with weaponry, and his ability to remain still and calm for long stretches made him unusual among his peers, yet these traits would later prove essential on battlefields where every second counted and every movement could mean life or death. Growing up in a modest household, Carlos learned discipline and responsibility early, understanding that success in life, like marksmanship, required careful observation, practice, and strategy. At the age of 17, drawn by a sense of duty, adventure, and a deep inner drive to test his limits, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, stepping into a world of relentless physical trials, mental endurance, and rigorous discipline. Boot camp pushed him to extremes, testing stamina, strength, and psychological resilience in ways that would break many young recruits, yet Carlos's quiet focus and methodical approach allowed him to excel where others faltered. He displayed a remarkable capacity to observe, calculate, and execute with precision under immense stress, whether during long marches, target practice, or tactical drills. Instructors and fellow Marines quickly noticed his extraordinary skill, a combination of natural talent, intense focus, and a disciplined mind. He learned to measure distances, read wind patterns, control his breathing, and calculate the minutest details of shooting, transforming ordinary practice into a meticulous art form. His calm and steady presence stood in stark contrast to the chaos of training camps, marking him as a soldier destined for exceptional feats. Every challenge in boot camp, every obstacle he overcame, honed not just his physical skills but his mental resilience, sharpening his ability to stay calm under pressure, think strategically, and anticipate outcomes, qualities that would later define his sniper missions in Vietnam. By the time Carlos completed his initial training, he had become more than a skilled marksman. He was a thinker, a strategist, and a young man whose patience, discipline, and unwavering determination were already setting him apart from his peers. Little did anyone know that the quiet boy from Little Rock, who practiced aim for hours in the backyards and forests of his youth, would soon enter the deadly jungles of Vietnam, where his skills, patience, and courage would save countless lives, strike fear into his enemies, and create a legend that would endure for decades. The early years of Carlos Hathcock were a foundation, a perfect preparation for the trials ahead, where he would face unimaginable danger, endure extreme physical and mental stress, and ultimately redefine what it meant to be a sniper in the United States military, leaving a legacy that would be studied and revered by generations of soldiers to come. The seeds of his legendary career were planted in these formative years, nurtured by observation, focus, discipline, and an unbreakable will, preparing him to step onto a battlefield where precision, patience, and courage would be the difference between life and death, and where the quiet Marine with a white feather pinned to his hat would become an immortal symbol of deadly expertise, unwavering bravery, and strategic mastery. Carlos Hathcock stepped off the plane into Vietnam, leaving behind the familiar quiet of Arkansas and the disciplined routine of boot camp, entering a world of chaos, heat, and uncertainty, where danger lurked behind every tree and every shadow in the dense jungle. The moment he felt the oppressive humidity hit his skin, the cries of distant artillery and the smell of wet earth and decay, he realized that this war would demand everything he had: patience, skill, courage, and a mind sharper than any blade. His first missions were reconnaissance, moving silently through hostile terrain, observing enemy patrols, memorizing their routines, and reporting movements to his commanding officers. Every step through the jungle had to be calculated. One false move, one careless sound, and his life, or the lives of his fellow Marines, could end instantly. Yet Carlos thrived under these conditions, drawing on the years of focus and discipline he had honed since childhood, applying lessons from boot camp to survive, adapt, and excel in a landscape designed to kill. His first confirmed kill in Vietnam was not a moment of glory but of precision and necessity, a demonstration of skill that immediately set him apart from other Marines. Word quickly spread about a sniper who could appear out of nowhere, strike with deadly accuracy, and vanish without a trace, leaving both enemies and allies in awe of his abilities. The dense foliage, oppressive heat, and ever-present threat of ambush became both a challenge and a proving ground, sharpening his instincts and teaching him how to move like a ghost, how to hide in plain sight, and how to wait, often for hours, for the perfect moment to take a shot. Each mission tested his endurance, patience, and mental fortitude, factors as critical to survival as marksmanship, forcing him to remain motionless for long periods, study the behavior of enemy soldiers, and anticipate every possible outcome before making a single move. He learned to calculate distance, wind, humidity, and even the subtle behavioral patterns of his targets, turning every engagement into a tactical chess match where a single miscalculation could prove fatal. Fellow Marines began to trust him not just for his deadly skill, but for his uncanny ability to foresee danger, protect his unit, and neutralize threats before they could strike. Carlos's presence in the jungle began to alter the psychological landscape of the war. Enemy soldiers whispered about the white-feathered sniper whose shots seemed to come from nowhere, while his fellow Marines grew confident knowing he was watching over them, ready to act with precision at any moment. Through months of grueling missions, Carlos honed not only his technical skill but his mental resilience, embracing the solitude and danger of his role, transforming each challenge into a step toward mastery, and cementing a reputation that would grow into legend. By the end of his initial deployments, Carlos Hathcock was no longer just a Marine in Vietnam. He had become an unseen force, a silent guardian for his comrades, and a terrifying presence for his enemies, a man whose patience, discipline, and deadly accuracy were beginning to write the story of one of the most extraordinary snipers the world had ever known. Every mission, every shot, every tense hour spent lying in wait deep in the jungle added to the myth of the white feather, creating a narrative of fear, respect, and awe that would follow him throughout the war and ultimately immortalize him in military history as a master of patience, strategy, and lethal precision. By the time Carlos Hathcock had fully settled into the unforgiving jungles of Vietnam, he was no longer just a Marine performing missions. He had become a ghostly figure whose very presence altered the dynamics of the battlefield. Soldiers began to whisper about the white feather pinned to his hat, a small emblem of audacity that both taunted and terrorized his enemies, signaling that a sniper of unmatched skill was watching from somewhere unseen, poised to strike with lethal precision. Hathcock's engagements became legendary not only for the number of confirmed kills but for the meticulous calculation, patience, and strategy that defined each action. One of his most famous feats involved a shot at an enemy officer from over 2,500 yards, an almost impossible distance, yet executed with perfect focus and timing, demonstrating a mastery of ballistics, wind, and human behavior that left even seasoned snipers in awe. Beyond these incredible feats, Hathcock's work was defined by psychological warfare. He stalked enemy positions for days, studying patterns, predicting movements, and creating fear that spread like wildfire through the ranks of the opposition. He engaged in direct duels with enemy snipers, each encounter a deadly game of patience and precision, where minutes could stretch into hours, and a single lapse in judgment could be fatal. Through it all, Hathcock remained calm and methodical, his mind functioning like a machine of strategy and observation, calculating every factor, distance, wind, light, foliage, enemy tendencies, before deciding to pull the trigger. His long hours of hiding, observation, and ambush planning became the stuff of legend, turning him into an almost mythical figure among both allies and adversaries. His kills were not acts of recklessness or showmanship. They were the culmination of careful study, deep understanding of the terrain and the enemy, and an unshakable commitment to protecting the lives of the Marines under his watch. Stories circulated of enemy soldiers walking into traps meticulously set by Hathcock, only to realize too late that a patient and deadly observer had chosen the exact moment to strike. The white feather became symbolic of his presence, a simple, almost innocuous object that heralded death to his enemies and reassurance to his comrades. Through these legendary missions, Hathcock's name began to grow beyond the jungles of Vietnam, whispered in fear by his enemies and with reverence among the American troops, representing the perfect combination of patience, skill, and courage under unimaginable pressure. Each battle, each sniper duel, each calculated kill, reinforced his reputation as a man who had transformed the art of sniping into an almost scientific discipline, blending stealth, psychology, and marksmanship into an unstoppable force. By the end of this period, Carlos Hathcock had cemented his place not merely as a sniper but as a symbol of precision, strategy, and lethal mastery, a soldier whose story would inspire generations and define the standards of sniping excellence, while his enemies could only wonder where the next shot would come from and how one man could command the jungle with such silent, deadly authority. As Carlos Hathcock's reputation grew, so too did the intensity and danger of the missions assigned to him. No longer just observing from a distance, he was deployed on operations that demanded not only precision but courage and quick thinking under extreme pressure. The jungles of Vietnam were treacherous, concealing enemy patrols, hidden mines, and ambushes that could strike without warning. Yet Hathcock moved with the poise of a predator, relying on every lesson he had learned from his youth, boot camp, and months of jungle experience. His heroism extended beyond his deadly marksmanship. Countless lives of fellow Marines were saved because he had the foresight to anticipate enemy movements, scout ahead of patrols, and neutralize threats before they could act. He faced numerous encounters with enemy snipers, each duel testing his nerves and skills, often requiring hours of lying motionless in thick foliage, calculating wind, distance, angles, and timing, fully aware that a single misstep could end his life. In one instance, he stalked a high-ranking enemy officer for days, studying patrol patterns and observing routines, before making a single shot that changed the course of an entire operation, demonstrating not just lethality, but patience, planning, and strategic brilliance. Hathcock also endured personal hardships, injuries from shrapnel, exhaustion from long periods of hiding, and the mental strain of continuous high-risk engagements, yet he adapted and persevered, maintaining focus on his duty above all else. His peers began to see him not only as a sniper but as a guardian, a silent protector whose presence on the battlefield was both a shield for his comrades and a nightmare for his enemies. Stories circulated of Hathcock crawling through mud and brush for hours to gain a perfect vantage point, ignoring hunger, thirst, and fatigue, solely dedicated to completing the mission and protecting the Marines under his watch. Even when trapped or isolated, his mental resilience allowed him to stay composed, make calculated decisions, and survive situations that would have overwhelmed ordinary soldiers. These missions solidified his legend. He became the embodiment of patience, skill, and courage in the face of danger. Fellow Marines came to rely on his presence, understanding that with Hathcock watching over the unit, the odds of survival increased dramatically. Enemy forces, on the other hand, spoke in hushed tones about the white-feathered sniper who could appear and vanish like a ghost, always striking with deadly efficiency. Hathcock's heroism was not only measured in kills or confirmed intelligence but in the lives he saved, the operations he safeguarded, and the morale he bolstered among his comrades. Each mission reinforced the narrative of a soldier whose mastery of strategy, stealth, and marksmanship elevated him beyond a mere combatant to a symbol of courage, vigilance, and unwavering dedication, ensuring that his legend would not only endure but grow with every daring operation and narrow escape, painting the portrait of a man who truly redefined what it meant to be a Marine sniper in the most dangerous and unforgiving environment of the Vietnam War. When Carlos Hathcock finally returned from Vietnam, he carried with him not only medals and commendations, the Silver Star, Navy Cross, and countless awards, but also the heavy, invisible weight of the battles he had fought and the lives he had taken, knowing each decision could mean life or death for those around him. The quiet Marine who had once trained as a boy in Arkansas, whose focus and patience had grown into deadly precision in the jungles of Southeast Asia, now faced the challenge of reconciling his heroism with the memories and scars that would last a lifetime. Yet his legacy extended far beyond medals or numbers of confirmed kills. It lived in the lives of the Marines he had saved, the countless missions he had influenced, and the very tactics and strategies that would shape sniper training for generations to come. His techniques, patience, and psychological mastery became the gold standard for snipers everywhere, teaching that true lethality is born not from recklessness but from observation, preparation, and the calm mind under extreme pressure. Despite the fame and whispers of the white feather that had followed him across battlefields, Hathcock remained humble, understanding that his role was not to glorify himself, but to serve, to protect, and to act decisively when lives were on the line. In later years, he shared his experiences with new generations of Marines, imparting lessons not just about marksmanship but about courage, strategy, patience, and the mental fortitude required to survive and thrive in life or death situations. His story reminds the world that heroes are often quiet, deliberate, and unseen, that the greatest acts of bravery often occur in silence, and that the impact of one disciplined, determined individual can ripple across history in ways both visible and invisible. Even today, the legend of Carlos Hathcock continues to inspire, a reminder that precision, patience, and unwavering focus can achieve what seems impossible, that courage is not measured by the roar of battle but by the calm in the face of unimaginable danger, and that a single life, trained and dedicated, can alter the course of countless others. As viewers reflect on his story, they are left with a profound sense of awe and respect, understanding that the white feather was not just a symbol of fear to his enemies, but a testament to the extraordinary power of skill, discipline, and sacrifice. A story that challenges us to think about courage, legacy, and what it truly means to protect others at all costs. And as the final frame fades, one question lingers in the minds of every viewer. What would you do if you were in his boots, staring down the jungle, knowing a single decision could change lives forever? This is the haunting, inspiring, and unforgettable legacy of Carlos Hathcock, the Marine who became more than a sniper. He became a legend.